10, 9.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Get ready for two guys who can't handle the truth.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
But we can. Dave Palumbo, Chris Aceto. RXMuscle.com presents Heavy Muscle Radio. Watch out!
Welcome to another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by the technician, Chris Aceto, on this September 24th, 2018 evening. And Chris, a lot of gossip going on in the world of bodybuilding. You know, after an Olympia, especially where the current reigning champ loses,
gossip.
It's usually the weeks or two after that really when the stories go down, because then everyone kind of like starts, talk, because everyone's got to validate or unvalidate, if that's a word, what went on that weekend. And obviously there was a lot of stories between the Phil Heath, losing the Olympia, Ramy bombing out, guys like obviously Roden winning the Olympia. That's a huge story in itself. No one's even talking about William Bonac. I mean, he placed top 5, but he was not the Bonac we saw earlier in the year at the Arnold and at the Olympia last year. So there was a lot of shuffling around. I mean, now and then this past weekend we'll talk about also Hadi Choopan, who couldn't make it to the Olympia because he couldn't get a visa, winning the Asian Grand Prix show, decimating the guys there. And then of course the question is, would he have beaten Flex? So there's a lot of questions out there we're going to talk about. Ronnie Coleman coming out of his surgery. I want to talk about that as well. So let's just start at the top. I think Ramy's one of the biggest stories, and I'm going to tell you why I think Ramy's one of the biggest stories, because the excitement over, Roden and all the Phil Heath, rationalizations that he's been giving over the last couple, the last week or so, that kind of is already out. We kind of talked about that last week a little bit. But this week, everyone's still speculating, what's going to happen to Ramy? Where is Ramy? Obviously we broke the story that was validated by Beta Badai that Ramy had left Oxygen Gym in Kuwait, moved back to Egypt, his home country. A lot of people didn't know much about Ramy until I talked to him at the Olympia about his fishing boat escapades and what his family does on the fishing front. You obviously have a personal relationship with, outside of coaching. I know you guys text each other a lot. Where's Ramy's mind at this point? Where would you, if you had to evaluate him as a psychiatrist, where would you say Ramy's head is at this point?
Probably better than Phil's head, but
yeah.
By the way, this week I didn't want to I celebrated Phil's loss all week because people say, "How you celebrating Shawn's win?" I said, "I got to celebrate the loss first." That's my only dig of the week.
Okay. I'll get back. I have a couple.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. That's having fun.
A couple irons in the fire with them.
Yeah, that's just having fun. Where's Ramy? I think that Ramy is he's headed back to Egypt. That's true.
Did he move like his stuff? Did he pack and stuff? I mean,
I didn't ask. I just
like when you go to Oxygen Gym, and you move out there to Kuwait. Like, what do you bring with you? Do they let you bring stuff, or do you just come with like a suitcase?
I'm the only body. I mean, I stayed with Ramy. Don't forget when I was.
Did he have a house out there, or was he staying in
a beautiful house?
Oh,
gorgeous.
Okay, so
gorgeous,
he owns property there, is what you're saying?
Yes. So I don't know what he's going to do with the house. I was thinking of me and you could set up RX Muscle Kuwait there. We could rent out the house, and I could do like an Airbnb.
Yeah, there you go. God, that's right up your alley. You should buy that thing right off of Ramy. He's got a bad taste in his mouth now. Maybe he'll let it go cheap.
Yeah. So no, my understanding is that he's headed back to Egypt, and he seems good. He seems. I don't think. He's not the type to play games. Well, he's not the type to mislead me in terms of the way he feels. And, he said, he is adjusting, and he's going to make a change, and he's headed to Egypt. And, he's thankful to, Ramy, he's thankful to God for his health and his fans and, that he can, all the support. And, Ramy is a very personal guy, but a shy guy, right? You know that.
Yeah, he seems pretty humble to me when
I mean, that's why, listen, think of the 2-hour interview, blockbuster, people would love for Ramy to sit down with you and just talk. I mean, we talked about Phil not talking.
Yeah.
Ramy is sequestered in, the last 5 years. Nobody can get an interview with Ramy.
Yeah.
The only thing you hear out of Ramy is the announcement of his weight at the Olympia, and Bob Ciccarello confirming the weight every year, and somebody Beta promising the Sandow to him. That's about the synopsis of...
Beta promised to stand out to us. I don't know if he promised it to Ramy, but I know he definitely came into our wrap-up we did at last year's Olympia, and he was showing medals off, the second place medals.
Well, I'll take a picture of Roden's Sandow, and if Roden won't send a picture of me, I'll ask Aaron Singerman for a picture of his and say it was Roden's and send it over there.
Let me say one thing. First of all, I got to tell Beta's a good sport because we break his balls a lot, and he breaks our balls. He is a good sport about it, even if maybe he's really not, but he portrays it as being a good sport. And he did come up and break our balls last year when Ramy was second and Ashkenani was second in the 212, and he brought the medals and he actually put them around my neck.
And my guys beat both their guys,
right.
Dave.
So I have to give you now a little. I got to give you the right to give the dig back.
If you're in the house with the show, you can give me a standing.
He deserves it. You actually delivered the Sandow, okay, this year, and Ramy was nowhere to be seen. So you actually have bragging rights, I guess you could say, for the next 365 days over Beta because you delivered the Sandow. Now, had Ramy come and worked with you, and Beta had gotten on team RX Muscle, maybe you would have had a first and a second place Sandow medal. Beta decided he was going to take over the prep, and what the problem was, and we talked about this earlier. Ramy was rewarded last year with second place and validated for the way he looked, and he didn't look that good. And it was probably just because there really was no one else there. Everyone was off a little bit. Dexter was off. Roden was off. Bonac probably should have been second. And so when you give Ramy second, that tells the guys at Oxygen Gym, this is the look we want, right?
It's why people buy a stock that's continually going up. Even if it's not delivering on its results. Right. In other words, it doesn't have real, true, stellar results in terms of its cash flow, for example. But people keep buying it because it's going up. Because he plays second. There's the idea that must be his best,
and that must be the right direction he's going.
No, I had a conversation with a couple people, and I had a conversation with 2 people from Kuwait after the Olympia last year. Very small conversation because they asked me, what did you think of Ramy? And they wanted that validation of best he's ever looked. And I said, I thought he was, radically tighter last year, and they were just aghast when I said that. And I knew right then that was within 4 hours after the Olympia, 2 hours after the Olympia.
But aside from the Oxygen Gym guys, I don't know many experts, in our industry that have agreed that Ramy looked good. Do you?
Last year?
Yeah. Who would be on the Ramy bandwagon?
No, I mean we I always say this. We do the wrap up. And it's different than, people score shows.
Even Shawn Ray didn't think, when I talked to him, didn't think that Ramy looked good last year. So, I mean, I don't know who, aside from the people who were, in his corner, I don't know anyone who said that, hey, Ramy was amazing, There may have been some fans online who thought he got ripped off and that he should have beaten Phil just because they didn't like the way Phil looked. But I certainly didn't think Ramy was. I thought he was maybe one of his worst looks, actually, last year. It wasn't as bad as this year, but it wasn't one of his better looks, I didn't think.
All right, I'm in agreement with you there.
So I think that sent the wrong message, and they delivered this message to him and to his handlers, and they came back and they're like, "We come in bigger this year," even though I know that the Oxygen Gym guys listen to everything we say. They watch all the shows, and we've said over and over and over
on this radio show,
don't make the mistake of bringing this guy in too big. The weight means nothing. Get him ripped. Shredded wins the contests, especially against a guy like Phil Heath. That's his calling card, conditioning. So why would you try to battle a guy who's the Mr. Olympia based on conditioning by bringing someone in smoother than him? It's illogical. It's the stupidest strategy of all time. If you had to sit down and create a strategy to beat Phil Heath, it had to be the most moronic strategy I've ever seen. Now, I want to add something to the story because I got a call from Chris Cormier the other day, who obviously goes out there and he helps Ramy with posing. And he said he really didn't see much of Ramy. Ramy was kind of keeping him to himself. He saw him like 4 or 5 weeks out. He said he looked really good. And we saw those pictures. He did look good. But he seemed to have gotten worse from there, not better. And I think that's the problem.
Well, I said, which mirror was it in, dude?
Yeah. No, but I saw the pictures. You can't fabricate too much. He was on the right track at 4 to 6 weeks out. He wasn't ready yet, but he was on the right track. He didn't improve from there, in my mind at least. He might have gotten worse. Now, according to Chris, Cormier is telling me that that Ramy wasn't listening to what the Camel crew was saying, and that's why he didn't look good. And so I'm assuming that he's speaking for, Bader and the Oxygen Gym guys, because I don't know why he called me out of nowhere. He was trying to deliver a message to me, obviously, that Ramy wasn't listening. Do you believe that?
When you see a debate, presidential debate, and someone gets schlonged, as Trump would say.
Schlonged.
He used that word. And after, people come on TV and they spin who won.
Right.
And they spin things. And I think that's, kind of like the spin. It's like, he didn't listen to us.
Well, that's the only thing they could possibly say, right? Unless they completely take responsibility.
We started Dave with, I've always said this on the show, I have a real personal relationship with Ramy. Yeah. I could care less ever about prepping him. I have a actual genuine, good relation, decent relationship with him. I think far more real relationship than other people who think they have a relationship with him. And I will defend him by saying that, at least when I worked with him, he listens.
Yeah.
So to say that he's not listening seems like spin to me, like assigning blame. And, what did Cormier say? Look how Rowley looked? Let me guess.
No. We were just talking about Ramy, and he said that, he was insinuating that he had body parts that looked kind of weird. And
did he listen to him? Did he listen to Cormier on the posing?
Well, Cormier said that he didn't see him after 4 weeks or 5 weeks out. He said Ramy was like sequestered.
The question for Cormier is, did he listen to you in terms of the advice you gave him for posing?
I don't know. I don't think he was upset that Ramy wasn't looking at Ramy, so he was insinuating that Ramy was doing something else, and not. I don't look. Who knows what really went on?
So the catastrophe started 4 weeks out.
I tend to believe that Ramy would listen to who's ever helping him. There would be no reason why he wouldn't. Like you said, when you helped him, his weight was way under 300, so he obviously was listening to what you said, because I know you wanted him under 300. If he wasn't listening to you, he would have been 310, like he was this year. So I don't know what was going on. I can't imagine Ramy eating more food. You know what I mean? Saying, oh, you know what? These guys want me eating 1 million carbs. I'm going to eat even more than that to get even more out of shape. That doesn't seem logical to me. So yeah, look. If I was those guys, obviously Bader has money invested in this whole thing. He's put out a lot of money to help all these bodybuilders, including Ramy. And Ramy, I know, is very graciously, thankful for that, and he should be. And I think that relationship is not going to change. What Bader does for the athletes won't change, but what he does is in the coaching aspect, if it's not working, you hire someone else who can do the job. That's what a good businessman would do. If the franchise is not working, right? If the New York Yankees are not winning the World Series, right? You own the New York Yankees. What do? You hire a better coach so they can get there, right? I mean, that's just logical. Who cares who coaches Ramy as long as they can say, hey, we got the Mr. Olympia over here. That's where they went wrong. I think this is where maybe the egos over there stepped in, and everyone wanted to take responsibility for doing it rather than just saying, hey, you know what? He reps our gym.
Just take a pause for a minute, David. Imagine the shock that Ramy doesn't win, who I used to coach.
Yeah.
Previous to someone else, but that of all people, Shawn Rhodes, who was considered done, wins. I mean, it's like shocking.
Well, you know what? But you know what? Shawn Rhodes winning was a testament to what we always say on this show: conditioning wins shows. I forget who told me this. Who was I forget who I was talking to. They said, you know what? Chris Aceto won the Olympia. And I said, what do you mean by that? Well, he said because his strategy won the Olympia, which was what, bringing Rhodes in the best shape of anyone on stage. He goes, exactly. I mean, everyone was worried about size, this, that, guts. You just got Rhodes in shape, and he showed up and he won. And that's what Dexter did in '08, right? I mean, Dexter showed up in shape, and Jay was off, and no one else could beat him, And so,
well, Dave, you called it. I sent you a picture of Rhodes like 3.5 weeks out, and you said this is very dangerous. I know when you use that word, this is a very dangerous look for Rhodes.
Yeah, because he was.
That I knew because I know if you had said like, well, he's. Usually, Dave, I can send you pictures on someone I think shredded, and you go like, oh, get him harder. I'm like, come on, Dave, for God's sakes. 3 weeks.
Because Shawn's got the structure. When you get that structure with the conditioning, that's a hard look to beat. And I saw that his gut was flat, and he wasn't having any distension issues, which is weird for him because he got a long torso with a small waist. When he had those couple issues the last 2 years, I knew something had to be up, and I'm glad he, obviously that was.
Can you imagine it? It took a near-death experience.
Yeah,
literally.
That was when
he to solve it. Mm-hmm. Because people would do this. All the people, the experts. Chris carbs him up too much, or he's got to do the wet carbs or the dry carbs to add more fluid.
Too many diuretics, right? Too much.
Yeah, too many diuretics dehydrate the intestinal wall. It's like, how about this? Bleeding ulcers for 2 years.
Well, I think. Look, you know what? I'm going to throw this under the bus. I don't care if it gets out there because I'm kind of pissed off. I don't like when people like say things about you. Just like I know you defend me. Luke Sando was you worked with him. He looked great.
Luke news, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Luke was looking his best working with you, and then he had he had one show that I don't know what happened. He wound up in the hospital, something like that, because he was sick or something. And he threw you under the bus on every freaking podcast he can go on, which I thought was really disrespectful. And then you tell me the other day he calls you up and wants to work with you again after he sees that Rhodes wins.
Because you know what? It's like a stock picker. Bring it back to stocks. People say, "Oh God, the guy's terrible. He's had his fund is down like 20% this year. Then the next year he's up 200%, and everyone wants to invest with him."
But
That's what happens.
What a pair of balls, though. People are really very, very disrespectful.
Well, it makes me look like I was. I mean, I don't know. It makes me look good.
No, but it's so disrespectful. That's why a lot of people ask me, how come you work with more of the amateur guys and you don't work with a lot of the Olympia guys? And you know what the truth is? I don't have time for all the drama, to be honest with you. I don't. It's too aggravating for me. I worked with Ahmad Ahmad in the 212 division, and he was a little too dehydrated for the Olympia. We actually brought him into the Hurricane Bay show this past weekend in Classic. I pulled a what you did with here and now, and he won. And he won. So he's going to the Olympia Classic next year now. So that's I'm really proud of him. I know he worked really hard for that. And so, I mean, he's a very gracious, person. He's a very.
Are you kidding? Ahmad?
Very respectful.
What a wonderful person, right?
Yeah, very, very,
gracious. You just summed it up. Yes.
And so that type of person, I don't mind working with. And you know what? I understand that Ramy's the same way, and I understand that's why you enjoy working with him. Now, there was a rumor out. I saw someone sent me a post by someone in the Middle East. It was a rumor that he was working with Hadi. Of course, Hadi goes backstage and takes a picture with Ramy, and posts it on his Instagram.
How long did it take that hustle to begin?
You know what the truth is? And
I predicted that to you too, didn't I?
I understand.
Rhodes is going to win and Phil's going to lose, and then I said Hadi's going to hustle Ramy.
Well, but it was like. But you know what? From a business perspective, Hadi's a genius in that sense. He lost Mr. Olympia, so he'll latch on to the next guy who he thinks has the potential to be Mr. Olympia. It's a good business decision on his part. I can't doubt him for that. I can't even put him down for that. But it is kind of like jumping in someone's grave before they even got buried. That kind of thing.
Now, you want to talk about good business decisions? I heard Dan Solomon's going to be covering it for his website.
He sold his website. He doesn't even own his website. Dan's even smarter than all of us. He sold Digital Muscle to the Wings of Strength people. I have to ask him. I'm going to get him on. I got to find out how much money he made on this thing. I won't. Off the record, I'll find out. I'm sure I'm sure he did very well for himself. Dan's a smart businessman. But the bottom line is that it's a good move for Hadi, and it's almost like it's like a political move like he made, like trying to make people believe that he's working with Ramy. But you told me that, because I had called you immediately. I said, "Is that true?" And
No,
I can't, because I couldn't know. What I couldn't believe is that Ramy would make a decision so quickly right after the show.
Not true.
Okay, so Ramy's still a free agent.
So all the I told you all the.
Who else called him? Yeah,
I told you. What I tell you in that email? I said, Ramy told me in person. Read that. I sent it to you. I said every single known and unknown player.
I didn't call him.
No, I know.
Some people asked me if I wanted to work. I said no. I said, Chris, I want Chris to work with him, because I know it's important when you work with someone like that you have some kind of a personal relationship, and you already have one with him. I mean, you're the obvious choice, and I know you. I think eventually, when Ramy is settled, you'll be the guy he goes with. But who else tried to hustle him up?
He told me every known and unknown guru.
Do you have names? Give me names.
I think Chad contacted him. Hadi has contacted him. Patrick Tour has contacted him.
Funny.
I mean, that's not to say that they couldn't help him.
Right. No, I think anyone. Look,
but the point
can't help
is, like,
this guy. He's a genetic freak.
It's like the potential golden goose.
Of course. Everyone wants to latch onto this guy. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And you know what? The minute something happens to him and he's not feeling well,
that's the risk. That's the risk.
They'll drop him like a dead sack of potatoes. I wonder how do you think Phil feels that Hadi is trying to is already looking for the next Mr. Olympia? Now that Phil lost.
I don't know. Nobody can ever interview him except that one guy in that gym that time, so we'll never know.
Let's talk about Phil for a minute, because Phil, made this statement right after the Olympia, the day after that. He went on the show and he said, or he was at some kind of a meet the Olympians after. And he talked about how he thought we were upset. We were just pissed off because he wouldn't do our show.
Let me say this.
Okay.
Before I forget, because you can only hear this stuff on this radio station. So now I'll open up some gossip. Hadi once had dinner, not too long ago, in the last 3 years, with Phil and Shawn, and Hadi proposed that he prep Shawn to win the Arnold Classic, and it'd be okay with Phil so long as he only won the Arnold and stayed out of the Olympia. And when Shawn told me that,
so Shawn wasn't allowed to do the Olympia.
Shawn, I just told Shawn, well, did you tell Phil you're beating him? And Shawn, laughed and laughed because this was 2014.
Oh, really? That's funny. And then in 15 he almost won, so that was pretty funny. That's funny.
So, it's kind of like, let me date your wife, on Thursdays, but not, you can still go.
Well, I would have to believe that Phil would be pretty pissed off that Hadi's trying to hustle up Ramy already, because, I'm sure Phil wants to come back and win the Olympia again. I mean, that would be what I want to do. I mean, if you look at Phil, his body still looks great. I mean, he's got the midsection issue, but it's not like he's got like a torn lat like Ronnie did or whatever. Ronnie had the nerve impingement. Or Dorian had a torn bicep, tricep, Phil's got to just fix the midsection problem, which can be fixed, to a certain degree. I don't know how much, but it can definitely be improved. So I'm sure he's not happy that Hadi's already given up on him in a sense, looking for the next big thing. But look, Hadi's a businessman. I understand his move that he made, and that's why he makes money, and he's well to do. Now, getting back to the Phil thing, Phil was saying that he thought the questions I was asking him about his family and his upbringing and his business were not appropriate. He wanted me to ask him how it felt to win the Olympia, which we talked about already. Obviously, I don't need Phil to tell me it feels good to win the Olympia. I'm not going to throw softball questions at him. And it's funny because when I was talking to Shawn Ray said the same thing. I don't let anyone dictate to me what questions to ask. So the fact that I even gave Phil the questions ahead of time was kind of a nice thing for me to do. So he makes this big to-do about it. I obviously go on and do a rant about what a real interview is about. And I think a lot of people, almost 100,000 people saw it, or maybe more. And 99.9% have agreed exactly with what I said. Now, Mark Bell, who's a great guy, by the way. Mark Bell, who's into the powerlifting realm. I don't even know how he knows Phil Heath, to be honest with you. I didn't watch the whole interview. I watched parts of it. Released an interview that he did with Phil in June. June, mind you. That was 3 months ago, right? And it's a 2-hour interview, and Phil talks about everything, including his father, the real father, the biological father, his, adopted father, his regular, mother, his family. I mean, he talks about everything. I mean, for 2 hours, you have to talk about your whole life. What else are you going to talk about? You can't talk about how it feels to win the Olympia for 2 hours. And Mark releases in an interview, Phil went on this rampage about how my questions were inappropriate. He's already answered the questions in an interview. What, do you forget he did the interview with Mark? Maybe he figured Mark is not going to release it. I'll just, I mean, this guy's got to be out of his fucking mind.
Well, maybe he used that as an excuse that, you want the pseudo diagnosis.
Yeah, I want your analysis.
He's mad because you probably picked Roden to beat him on this show or on RX Muscle, TV.
But I didn't. I picked him.
But in the past, we've done wrap-ups 2015 where you had him winning the prejudging, and he's overly sensitive.
I don't know.
Like,
you know what? You and I have been so defensive of his win last year when everyone was saying gut, the bubble gut.
Dude, I defended him when Shawn beat him in the prejudging in 2015, and he was Mr. Saturday Night, and you interviewed me, and you said, "What do you think, Chris?" And I tried to lie in that wrap-up. I go, and you said, "What do you think? What do you think, Chris?" And I said, Phil.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, no, well, look, because we call it like we see it.
And that's
whether we like
after
the outcome or not. That's the bottom line.
I thought, beyond a shadow of a doubt, whoa, Shawn's got the prejudge, and, I know Phil can come back, and it's like he came back like lightning the next night. Right. And there was nothing I could say other than, he put it away.
But you know what the funny thing is? I listened to... I don't have to... I wish I had 2 hours to waste on listening to a whole interview. I listened to parts of it, and I'll tell you, it was a good interview. It was not that well shot because it was like... Maybe Phil didn't even know he was being videotaped. It was like someone on the side videotaping, but it was very honest. Phil was very honest and very open, and I thought that it was a good interview. I thought he did a great job. Phil was very open and candid about... everything, and I don't know how this guy forgot that he did this interview, because if he, there were the similar. Matter of fact, he answered a lot more questions than I was going to ask, because I didn't think I was going to spend 2 hours with him. I was going to spend maybe an hour, 45 minutes interviewing him. So I had to pick the most potent questions. But I don't know what's going on in this guy's head. I don't think he even knows what's going on, because he did this interview and he's acting like I'm asking him questions that are inappropriate. He already answered the questions. Yeah. I can't believe it, Chris. It's really crazy. I think everyone in our sport is crazy. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I've never seen anything like this anyplace else. So let me ask you this question. Now, with all the drama that's going on over the last 2 weeks now, you think that Phil will defend the title? I know you've already said no.
No.
And Shawn Rhodes said no.
No, he will not. I've said
try
that.
To win the title
I've
back,
said,
I should say, not defend the title.
David, it sounds remarkable, but I've said in the past that, one, Shawn will beat him, and then two, and people roll their eyes when I tell them that, and I said, and when he does, Phil won't come back. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, it could be completely ludicrous, but the fact that Shawn beat him kind of confirms my guesswork that that actually came true. And then here we go. Maybe Phil won't come back because Roden is not Kai.
But what about? Do you think Phil needs the money? Now, there was another podcast. I'm debating getting this guy on. I haven't reached out to him. Where they interviewed this pro football player who happens to be a terrific pro football player, by the way. Should I say his name?
What's out there? It's out there. Why not?
I don't know if I should do it. I don't want to I don't want to get my source out.
Okay, then just keep it. Just get him on the show. But anyways.
Anyway,
I mean, everyone needs money.
He's a good foot. He won the Super Bowl with the New York Giants. He's a defensive lineman guy. It's a long story, but he basically gave Phil this $100,000 bracelet to hold, and Phil never gave it back to him. He was insinuating, in this interview that Phil has no money, basically, and that he really needed to win this Olympia. to pay his bills and to really, to get on, get out of a hole he was in.
Well,
Now, I don't know if
about
it's
that.
true. I don't know if it's true or not because I obviously I don't know anything about Phil's finances, but so the bottom line is that Phil didn't win $400,000 this year. He won half of that. So does that mean he has to compete next year because he really can use the money? Because he doesn't have any supplement contracts. He doesn't have any magazine contracts anymore.
On the show, remember when we were discussing maybe 4 years ago about leaving Muscle Tech, and I said it was like,
He said it was the worst decision ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about how much money he would have had in the bank 4 years with what was he making? 250, 300 a year, something like that? Maybe more.
Yeah, something like that.
He might have been making closer to 5, I don't know.
I think they offered him 5.
Yeah, what a crazy lunatic. Jay, what did Jay say when he turned that one down?
I don't know, I never asked him.
If you had to play the part of Jay, what would Jay say?
Take the money, never turn down the money.
Right. Take the money for now. Right.
Yeah. Jay would say take it, bank it, and bank it.
Sure, you don't have to worry about anything for a couple. He would have, that would have been 4 years, no worries on his head. I think sometimes, bodybuilders get, and it's not just Phil, it's bodybuilders start to believe, that they're in demand and that demand is never going to go away. And the sad part about our industry is that there's so little money out there that once you're not on top anymore, no one cares anymore. They don't even. You go from people offering you $500,000 a year to zero. It doesn't go like in half. It doesn't go in a quarter. It goes to zero. You're worth nothing now. And that's in any industry though. They always want the interview with the guy or the person who's the most popular out there, and then when they fall from grace because they do something stupid. Because they get caught cheating on their wife or whatever the case may be, in the public eye, and everyone, they become the person that no one wants to hear from anymore. Then all the offers are off the table. I mean, you see it happen all the time to people.
Yeah, of course.
Look at these people, these Hollywood people who will make like a racist comment or something like that, offhandedly, not realize it, and all of a sudden now they're off they canceled Roseanne's sitcom because of some crazy statement she made. And everyone knows she's a nutcase anyway. So I mean, I don't know what was ever.
She
was so crazy.
She also baked Jewish cookies and still got a TV show. You saw that, right?
No, what's that about?
She dressed up as Hitler and she cooked. She cooked
I forgot that. You're
cookies of Jewish people.
Right. Which is
And she still got a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, but the bottom line is when they don't want you anymore, they don't want you. They toss you in the garbage. So I don't know. I think Phil almost has to do the Olympia next year. First of all, I don't think he can. I don't think his ego can handle a whole 2-year wait to try to win back that Olympia. I think he wants vindication on a personal level, and I think he needs them. I think he could definitely use the money. I mean, who can't use the money? I mean, that's a lot of money.
I'm just going to say, I'm just going to put it into perspective, Dave, is that, I mean, everyone has, in relation to their income, a lot of bills. If you're making a little money or a lot of money, you just happen to have, a little bit more money than, bills going out. That's the nature of the beast.
You said it to me. Look, even if you have a good savings account, if you go a year without making any money, or any real money, that savings account will dwindle really, really fast. Yeah. Those months go by fast. Mortgages, car payments, food, supplements.
Health insurance.
And before you know it, you got nothing left. So, even if Phil took second again next year, I mean, that's still another 200. If he took third, it's still $100,000. It's better than nothing. So, I don't know. I don't even know what strategy I would give to him at this point if I was advising him. I guess think about it, but I guess he's got to come back. I really think he's got to come back at this point. He's not set up in any kind of businesses that we know of, at least. I mean, maybe he is, but not that I know of. I mean, if he had like 3 or 4 or 5 businesses like Jay, you don't have to come back because Jay probably makes more money now than he did while he was competing.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's got more time to devote to it. Ronnie makes good money, I'm sure now too, because he's got the supplement company. Speaking of Ronnie got out of that surgery. He did last week. He went into that 10th surgery to fix the broken screws. And I saw a video on Instagram of him walking with the walker in the hospital, and he was saying that it was the best he had felt after a surgery, after the last couple surgeries. So he's kind of, the pain level has gone down quite a bit, and he was really, he was thanking God, and he was because chronic pain is terrible. He even admitted in the post that it was affecting his personality. He was getting depressed, something that he had never suffered from his whole life, and obviously it wasn't a clinical depression. It was an environmental depression. I mean, when you're always in pain, I mean, how could you possibly be in a good mood? You
you can't enjoy a cup of coffee when you're always in pain.
Yeah,
something simple as that.
Thank God for all the prayers out there, and were answered, and hopefully Ronnie will continue to recover, and at some point we'll be able to start walking normally, and we'll be out of pain. The most important thing is out of pain. He's never going to be normal, obviously, with all that hardware he's got in there, but it doesn't matter as long as he's not in pain. I have this stupid quad injury. I had 4 surgeries on it. It's still not right, but I'm not in pain. It doesn't work right, and it buckles on me every once in a while, and I do have to get it fixed eventually, but I'm not walking around in chronic pain. So there's a big difference, between living in pain and just living with something that's not working that well, and so once again, I'm sure Ronnie he knows that he's never going to be able to squat. I hope he knows he's not going to be squatting 600 pounds anymore, but at least he can walk around without any pain. That's what we're hoping for. So Ronnie, get well soon. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, there was a big announcement, obviously. I'm sure you heard that too. Chris Bumstead made on his, and I told people last week that he was going to make this big announcement. I had known about it prior to the Olympia, but I didn't say anything, obviously, because he asked me not to. He said he's going to make the announcement on his YouTube channel, and then he would come on and do an interview with us and talk about it a little bit more. But evidently, I guess Chris was diagnosed 4 years ago with IgA disease, which is usually a genetically inherited disease. It's an autoimmune disease. And, as you know, autoimmune diseases are not caused by taking steroids. They're not caused by the bodybuilding lifestyle. It just happens to be something that, you're born with. IgA nephropathy is also known as Berger's disease. It's basically an autoimmune disease that attacks your kidneys. There's immunoglobulin A is what IgA stands for, and basically this protein builds up in your kidney tubules, specifically the glomeruli, which are the filtering mechanisms. And when you clog the filtering mechanisms, just like if you clog a drain, okay, with these protein deposits, they can't filter the blood. And over years and years and years, especially when this autoimmune disease is active in the body, it will destroy your kidneys. And now, I hope he never has to go through a kidney transplant or his kidneys do not get destroyed. But, he's a young guy. He's having active bouts of this disease. And they're going to be putting him, obviously, on prednisone. I'm sure they have him on it now to try to get this suppress the immune system and get it back into remission. Now, I don't know if contest prep, is a stressful enough type of situation that will cause or reactivate this type of a disease, and it seems like that could be what happened. But he's going to have to live, like a monk-like lifestyle after this, to keep this thing in remission, and just really make sure he gets enough sleep, and you don't want to overstress your body. And obviously, contest prep is a stressful type of situation. Now, whether he decides to continue bodybuilding or not, obviously that's a personal decision, and I'd like to get him on the show. I know he's addressed it a little bit. At this point, I'm sure he's just trying to get into remission, see what the doctors think, and then go from there. It's unfortunately a terrible, diagnosis, and for a guy of his age, what is he, 26 now, Chris? Mm-hmm. To have to deal with this is something that it's a nightmare, and I think he handled it well. He looked pretty damn good considering he was battling chronic inflammation. I mean, think about it. You want to get hard and ripped, and your body is completely working against you in every sense of the word. And there's nothing you can do because you can't go on prednisone in 2 weeks out from a show. So he did the best he could. And second, he was 1 point away from winning, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. If you look at the scorecard.
Totally crazy.
So imagine if he didn't have this situation going on. I can only imagine what he would have looked like. So. Get well, obviously, Chris, and hopefully this coming week maybe we'll get him on the TV show, and I'll be able to ask him some more specific questions, and we'll get to the bottom. I don't really care about the disease as much as how he feels, because it really influences. Although Phil would say it's not a relevant question. Phil thinks I should just ask him how it feels to play second at the Olympia. That's more important than the fact that he's got a terminal.
The problem,
potentially.
The problem is right. The problem is when you have that disease.
He could die from it.
Affecting you physically, of course, die from it. is in the back of your head when you're pushing your body to the max, getting ready for a show. You know, you think, when is something going to give?
Right. Sure. It's always in the back of your mind. How can it not be? And then when it rears its head like that, I mean,
Scares the hell out of you.
Scares the hell out. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of
You
course
do this. I don't care. The minute, you know, the minute something goes wrong, you say, I don't need bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Right?
You know
It's
what?
as fun as it is, as rewarding as it is, as beneficial as it is to you and your family, you know, as exciting as it is. The minute something goes really wrong like that, when you have a disease like that, you get scared.
Right. But let me equate it to. Let me give you a good analogy. I don't know if it's an analogy or comparison, I guess would be the right word. Dennis Newman. I remember watching the ESPN broadcast of the USA Championships in 1995. Dennis Newman wins. I remember the announcers. I don't even remember who. I think it was Joe Amato or someone. They were saying this guy has got the greatest future of all time. He's a good-looking guy. He just won the USA. He looks amazing. The future's boundless for this guy. And what? Like a month or two later, he finds out he's got leukemia, and that was the end of his career. Really, I mean, it ended.
Yeah.
He overcame it. Obviously, still alive today. Thank God. I mean, but that was the end of his bodybuilding career, and I'm sure it changed his life. I mean, this guy was like the next coming, right? I mean, people couldn't say enough good things about Dennis Newman.
He
could have gone to Hollywood. This guy, he was like the next
Shawn
Steve Reeves,
type physique, square shoulders, square triceps, square, really unique looking shape and flow, big legs.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Chris Bumstead. Now, I hope that Chris could overcome. This is obviously, Chris doesn't have cancer, but this is a pain in the ass disease that he's going to have to manage, and he's going to have to say to himself, is bodybuilding going to make it worse? Or can I bodybuild and maybe be healthier because of the bodybuilding I'm doing? And I just...
What would you recommend, Dave? You're the only one who can give the layman's understanding of the disease.
I don't think that bodybuilding necessarily is bad for the disease, because I think that as bodybuilders, by and far, aside from contest prep at the very end, it keeps you in good shape. You eat well, you sleep and rest a lot. Your immune system is usually pretty good, while you're bodybuilding. So I think that that's good. I think it's the contest prep at the end, and I think he's just going to have to just do a very slow, gradual diet so that he doesn't really stress out his body a lot. And I think it's going to be a trial and error thing. If he can do it without the disease rearing its head, and every time he does a contest prep, then I think it's fine. At his age, I think he's got that mentality, and I understand it. Look, I have this gift. How could I throw it out the window on a possibility that it might not be a bad thing for me. Maybe I'll be worse if I don't bodybuild, because I'm going to get depressed and I'm not going to take care of myself as well. So the discipline of bodybuilding might be okay for this, but I think he's got to also understand that, this is something that's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. The best he can do is try to, stop it from progressing. And, he's going to have to consult with his doctor on this one. I don't think Chris, and once again, I'm going to get him on the show. He can give me the answers. Chris doesn't look like a quitter, and he looks like the kind of guy that will fight this and will keep going, with this. And, he knows he's a tremendously talented guy. And if he overcomes it and he can win the Olympia one day, then, this will be a great story that, that this is not something that, because people get these diseases, they think their life's over. And you have to live. You got to live your life. You can't just sit there and feel sorry for yourself, because that's the worst thing you can do. That's the worst, And look, Chris was crying on the video, and of course he was. I would be crying too. Here's a guy like Dennis Newman who's been touted as the next coming of Jesus in our sport, and he's he just got delivered a huge reality check that, hey, you know what? You got this thing going on that could eventually destroy your kidneys. Not a very nice thing to find out, when you think everything's going great in your life.
Yeah.
So we wish Chris obviously the best, and hopefully when Chris is feeling a little better, we'll get him on the show. So what else? Let me look. I actually we have notes. Chris sent me notes, and I had my own notes, and I looked at them, and they were almost the same notes. What we need to talk about.
Well, we had Lunsford, which we didn't really. Did we talk about Lunsford last week? We probably did the
a little bit
radio show.
I'll get to Lunsford in a minute. Let's talk about the show that took place this past week in the Asia Grand Prix. I believe this was Jose's last show, right?
Yeah. Well, he's going to do the Dominican show.
Oh, there's another show?
It's an open show. De La Rosa and...
Oh, he's doing an open show. Oh, good for
No,
him.
yeah. De La Rosa is putting it on with Victor.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Cool.
And I know, I would love to go if you could go, but I know you can't go, so...
No.
Unless we kidnap you like that little...
Yeah, Chris, tell me what that you sent me. That was brilliant.
Someone sent it to me, and I cried. And I sent it to Evan, and I sent it to everyone married. It says...
I saw Evan in the airport, leaving Vegas. We were both on like a 6 a.m. flight. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a while. We talked for a while.
Was he eating octopus and the rice or something?
No,
breakfast.
We hadn't really sat and talked for a while. It was great that we got to spend some time together, outside of the whole bodybuilding thing. But yeah, Evan's great. I like Evan a lot.
This message was sent to me. It says, "Dear friends, we've started a social service for married men on weekends. We arrest you in front of your wife and release you on Monday. Inbox me if you are interested. We come in full police uniforms and Jeep. Freedom for the weekend."
The problem is that you and I always go someplace where we're spotted, so we'd have to go to another country and hide out someplace.
I saw Dave, Chris, and Evan. I can't believe it.
They got arrested.
They were at the Yale campus.
I heard Beta Badai put out he called the cops on him, get him arrested. He didn't want him covering the show. Now, let's talk about this Asia Grand Prix show. Obviously, Flex Lewis was in it last year. Didn't do it this year. Probably a good move on his part, since the 212 Olympia was going to be his last 212 show. Hadi Choopan, obviously, we've been talking about him all year. He's Iranian. Can't get a visa to come to the U.S. Couldn't do the Olympia. This seems to be his Olympia every year.
And he's training him, by the way, even though he wasn't.
Yeah, it's funny. Hadi jumped on his bandwagon just the last couple.
That's okay. That's okay.
Now, Hadi looked pretty good last year without Hadi, but I'll say one thing. He looked very good at this show. I thought he was pretty flawless. I did a little video on it, recap on it. He beat David Henry, who was second. He beat this other Iranian guy who's really good, Maisim Kazavari. What's his name? King Kamal told me about him. He beat Jose, who was fourth, who looked amazing, and he beat Clarita, who was fifth, who was amazing. So, I mean, Hadi Choopan's the real deal. This is this guy could be the heir apparent, to the 212 throne. The problem is he can't get to America to do the Olympia.
Choopan beat Curry last year in Italy.
Yeah, that's true in that open category. Now, here's my question, Chris. How would Hadi Choopan, and obviously we'll never know, how would he have done against Flex Lewis at this year's Olympia? Would have been a battle, for sure.
Yeah, it's I hate those. I would have loved to seen it in person, because
a lot of people thought he won last year against Flex Lewis in Asia.
Yeah.
In Korea.
Yeah,
Flex was a lot better this year, however, I will say.
Agreed.
But Hadi looked better too, so I don't know. Isn't it crazy that in this day and age that we can't get this guy to a show because of political? This sounds like when the Russia was, when they had the Iron Curtain up, and the.
I know, it's crazy, right?
The Russian.
Unless, Dave,
what?
The Olympia is for sale and they move it.
It's true.
Case, and then he can get the visa to go somewhere else.
That's right. Maybe they need to hold the Olympia someplace else. Maybe they should split off the shows like they used to do it. Do the 212 in Korea or something like that, or I don't know, in Iran. Maybe Bader Badai should hold the 212 Olympia. There you go. Do it at Oxygen Gym. It seems like Kuwait's kind of like a neutral country. It seems like everyone can go to Kuwait,
Yeah, Kuwait doesn't bother anyone.
Everyone but Regan Grimes, right? Regan's afraid he'll be kidnapped back there again. He doesn't want to go anywhere.
I guess Ramy, so they're...
That's where Ramy left there. But he's got the house. Maybe Hadi Choopan can stay at Ramy's house. He can get ready for the Olympia. Look, I'll just say this.
He's impressive. Hadi Choopan is impressive.
He's very impressive. He's really, you can't, there's no, if you had to criticize the guy, what would you say is wrong with the guy? The
He's
wrong
Iranian.
citizenship? Yeah, he's Iranian, right. It's funny because there's a lot of Iranian guys living in the U.S. I don't know how they got here. I guess that was before Trump put the travel ban on it. But you know what Hadi should do? He should actually try to get citizenship in another country.
Canada.
That will take him, and then he can could just say, "Well, I'm a Canadian citizen, or I'm a Kuwaiti citizen, or whatever."
Well, you can go buy a passport in Malta and become a citizen.
There you go.
Once you are a citizen of Malta, Malta is part of the EU, so you can travel anywhere you want in Europe, and you can.
I think that's what he's going to have to do. I know he probably loves his country, but if he wants to come to the U.S. and he wants to compete at the Olympia, he's going to have to look. The Russians did that, right? They defected years ago, right? They came to the U.S. and I think that's what they're going to have to do. This guy's going to have to get out of Iran. It's a shame, that he can't defend his own. He can't represent his own country, but I want to see him on the 212 stage. Don't you want the best guy in the world to be the champion, the Olympia champion?
Absolutely.
Now here's my question. Now I'm pulling it full circle. Can Hadi Choopan would he have beaten Derek Lunsford?
Yes.
Okay. I agree.
I think that was one of the more generous placings of the...
I know you believe that Kamal should have beat him. How come Kamal didn't do the show, come to think of it?
He had the calf.
Oh, he tore the calf. That's right. Why don't you tell people the story?
Well,
you kind of did tell him the story.
It's another medical examination by Dave Palumbo. He tore the calf. He came to my room. He was supposed to be staying at the Orleans. He came to my room. He came out a week early, and he came to my room. And within 5 minutes of posing in my room, I thought, Dave, someone shot a bullet through the window or something. I'm dead serious. He
screamed that loud?
He screamed and he collapsed onto the floor. And then I thought he's having a heart attack. I didn't know what to do, and then he was grabbing his calf, and he said, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" That's honestly, Dave, I thought like a gunshot. I said, "Hear what?"
You did hear the noise?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
but he did. He heard like a pop.
Okay.
And then he stayed probably 20 hours in my room just icing it, and I think he spent the night.
Oh my God!
And he iced it, didn't ice it, and
the funny thing is, let me just stop you here for a second. I told Chris, I said, Chris, whose couch you sleeping on? You're like, no couch. I got my own room. My clients paid for it. I need my own room.
Yeah.
You lost your own room. You thought you had your own room.
I thought I did the first night. So he had, in fact, he said, I have no food. I can't move, and so Roden had those, he was next door. He had those, food delivery services,
really?
So
okay.
I brought that over. I said, hey, you can eat this. There's tons of food next door.
Right.
And he iced it, and then he realized that if he could get to the point of standing on it...
Right.
First thing I did is I called Derek Farnsworth.
Of course.
And Farnsworth said, be there tomorrow. And I gave him tons of ibuprofen, enough to blow out his kidney.
Yeah.
And
no pun intended.
And then he stayed in the room, and then he realized he couldn't even stand on it, but he realized if he could stand on it, because he was thinking, I got to get some crutches, he would never be able to make it to the Orleans, because when you go to the Orleans, if someone drops you at the door, you have to walk 3 football fields to the elevator.
On my feet from all the walking I did that weekend.
It's you have to go from, if someone drops you off at the Orleans, it's 3 football fields just to the elevator, and then you go up the elevators, and then another
and God forbid you forget something, you got to go back.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So he said, can I stay here? I said, nope. No, you can't stay in my room. I just can't have it. So he said his friend went on a million orbits and hot wire, and they did it for hours, and the hotel told them, we're sold out, you can't get a room. And they said, if you try one of these websites, they may have a room.
Which is crazy when you think about it. The hotel itself wouldn't know if they had a room, but one of these stupid sites has a room.
So they found something,
yeah,
and they booked it for a week, and he was exactly in the room below me, and his friends came over, and they acted as makeshift crutches, and they carried him downstairs.
Wow.
Until the...
but you know what? I wouldn't even know. He walked on stage like there was nothing wrong with him.
I know, Dave. And so, okay. So on Sunday, thing looked like a little baby elephant's calf.
Okay. Oh, so he was.
Monday.
This happened a week out. In other words,
It happened a week out, and he just pounded ibuprofen and painkillers all week. Someone said, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "It's bodybuilders. We'll just perk him out for the week." It's true. I asked like 10 million.
probably
people,
you look better because he rested the whole week and didn't do anything.
I thought of that too. You know what, Dave? I thought of that too because he didn't do anything.
Yeah. Sometimes that's good because everything heals up and the muscles look tight and separated. Because a lot of times in Vegas, this, like you said, there's so much walking that people actually run themselves down because of that.
No. So on Monday he had it. I didn't see him on Monday, but he sent me a picture of it, and I thought it was like playing games, like where you use Adobe or something to Photoshop it. Yeah. And then I sent it to you, and you said, "You better." What'd you tell me? You gave me the perfect advice.
Yeah, I mean, I've done stuff like that. You got to put compression on it. So usually, what I recommend people do is go to like CVS Pharmacy and get a compression stocking that will fit your foot all the way up to your knee. Because what happens is when you get all that swelling there, you get stagnation in the blood, and then you get an infection. And once you get that infection in that lower leg, and I've had them, they're brutally, and it's not from, it's just from the stagnating blood there that the bacteria grow. You can't get rid of it. It's you can risk losing your leg. So I said, Chris, you got to get him compression on there. And
the next day he went to the hospital and they put him on antibiotics right away.
Yeah, because
and I said, that's exactly what Dave said. That was the prescription. They put him on antibiotics, like multiple antibiotics, the very next day.
Unfortunately, I always find out the hard way doing things. I always wonder in my life. I'm always like, I used to always say to myself, and I say to my dad, why do I always have to learn things the hard way? He goes, maybe it's because you can teach other people what not to do. Or how to solve their problems. I said, you know what? That's true. I'm like a problem solver. So but it's a very real thing because in bodybuilding, especially when you're a big person and you have a lot of mass on you, and then you're rebounding after a show and holding water, stagnation is the worst. The best thing you can do, even if you're just not even injured, is wear those compression stockings on the airplane under your sweatpants or whatever. No one will even know they're there. I used to wear them just with shorts. I didn't care. And you know what? You don't retain water. And you know what? I've had injuries to my lower leg. I actually bang. You ever bang your shin against like a weight machine in the gym? Like, I don't even know how. I'm very clumsy. I smashed my shin so hard against the machine in Bev's once because there's so many machines there that I said, I'm going to get an infection. And I did. I got an infection from smashing my shin. And that the only way I got rid of it, they had me on 1 million antibiotics. I finally put the compression stocking on, and I got better circulation there, and I got all that fluid gone, and it went away. But so just for you people out there who are listening, if it ever happens, you ever injure yourself or cut yourself, another time. Here's another time. I'm embarrassed to admit, I actually was on an escalator. If any of you have been at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. It's an ingenious airport because what you do is you find out where your gate is, and then that's where you get dropped off. There's like 1 million different drop-off points. You get dropped off, and you go up this escalator to go check in. And this kid was like dancing on this escalator, like this little young kid with his parents. He wasn't listening, and he fell. And I went and I saved him basically. And when I leaned down, okay, as the escalator came to the top, my shin and knee got caught into the. It's like very, very, very sharp, the edge of that escalator. And it ripped my leg apart. You would think the kid's parents would have said, hey, thank you. They didn't do it. They smacked the kid, they took him, and they didn't even say, hey, thank you. And I'm blood is running down my leg, literally running down my leg. It was like track marks from the thing. I had track marks from the escalator on my leg for fucking 3 years after that. The scarring from it was so deep. I said, "This is what I get for helping someone. Nothing. I got an infection in my leg, and I got. It looks like someone. It looked like Wolverine took his claws and scraped my leg. That's exactly what it looked like. So, shit happens. The craziest, the weird shit happens.
Well, Kamal will be back for the Olympia next year at 47.
Okay, so you're not going to defend. There's no Arnold. I keep forgetting there's no Arnold.
No, because he said. He didn't know that until just recently.
Yeah, it's a shame that they got rid of it. I don't know why they got rid of it, but
it's insane they got rid of it.
I should have asked Matt Lors because I saw Matt Lors and Bob Lorma.
Well, you know what the problem is that they when you when you treat a son like a secondary son, he develops into a secondary son.
I think he's got too many divisions.
If you treat a contest like it's just like a sideshow, it never takes off. I mean, it's always in like they have it where the trade show is held. At the Olympia, they have the classic show and in the trade show. Doesn't make any sense.
No, but they have classic at the Arnold. They don't have 212 at the Arnold.
I know, but the point is, why are you having the classic Mr. Olympia, in which there's a lot of interest? Why are you having it on this small little stage?
I'll tell you why.
I'm
going to tell you why. I don't have to even call Robin Chang to find out why. I know why, even if they won't admit it. They need bodies in that expo.
Yeah.
They want people coming to the expo and staying in the expo, so they have to have events going on. So when you do because even if you don't pay for a ticket to watch it, you can still stand outside. There's a million people standing around it watching the event. People want to see Olympia competitors competing, so they put the women's and men's physique in there, another sideshow, right? And then they put the classic in there as well. And I feel bad for the guys, because the classic was one of the most exciting of the entire weekend, and I think eventually they'll move that to the main stage. They like to test things out in the expo, and then if it goes well, they move it to the thing. I don't have a problem with them doing prejudging there, but the finals at least the top 5 guys, let them pose at the on the Olympia stage, right, in the Orleans. I mean, that's something that they should be honored with, I think, at this point. And I'm sure that'll change moving forward. I'm pretty confident in that, because I think the classic it's certainly more exciting than some of the other divisions out there. That's for sure. And yes. I think there's more talk about the classic division than almost any other division out there, because I think people are really liking it, and I think we'll see a lot more of it moving forward. Now let me just look at my notes here. I'm looking at your notes. I'm looking at my notes. I wanted to tell you about I got a lot of good messages about our wrap up that we did at the Olympia with Milos, Samir, Tom Platz, Cormier, Yumi, Aaron. It was like an all-star wrap up, and people really loved it. And you know what? I'd love to do more of those. I love to get the people who look. Samir's great. I'll tell you why Samir's great. He might have only won the Olympia once, but as Dexter would say, once you win the Olympia, you're Mr. Olympia. And it's always great to get a Mr. Olympia to comment and critique the lineup. And he's probably the only Mr. Olympia who actually goes to the Olympia now and watches the show. Think about it. Who else is there? I don't see Ronnie there. Obviously, well, Ronnie is hurt, injured, but Jay went this year. But Jay's very guarded with his opinions, because he's trying to always be politically correct. I don't see Dorian going to any Olympias. Haney was there. We should have got Haney for the wrap up. Haney's very strong opinions. He likes. I think he liked Shawn Rhodes a lot, because I was talking to him. We were walking back together. We just happened to run into each other in the Orleans hotel, and I asked him. I said, "What'd you think of the prejudging?" And he's like, "Man, Shawn got that good waist. He loves the small waistline." Shawn Rhodes. And of course he was giving me critique on everyone. But Lee's good. The problem is that Samir knows to come out to the parking lot and meet me there. Lee is probably going to eat dinner with his wife or something like that.
Yeah.
Samir will stay there all night if I ask him to, right?
Of course.
And
you
talk
do a
about
5-hour wrap up. You ask Samir a question, and
maybe Samir should train Big Ramy.
Ask him.
I told the Big Lenny. I did an interview.
Samir
with
can talk with an Egyptian accent, right?
That's right.
Or is that?
That's George Farrar. That George. I want to just say, I want to put it out there. I don't know what's going on with George Farrar, but I think he's still dealing with his whatever cancer he had, and I want to just say, we wish you the best, and our prayers go out to you, because I know that if George was feeling better, he would have been at the show. So he obviously is still dealing with that, and we don't want to see any of our people, go down with anything bad. I don't care what our, debates or all the things that we say about each other goes. At the end of the day, I don't want to see anyone be sick. And so, George, get better. And we look forward to arguing with you again at future shows. But the bottom line is, imagine if you sent Big Ramy to go train with Samir and then pose with him. Big Ramy would quit. He would quit. He would be like, I can't take this. It's too much.
Well, he couldn't take the posing or the training? The posing.
Everything, I think, Samir would want to make him pose for 3 hours a day, probably, right?
Of course. No, he'd want to work on his... You know what Samir would want to work on? The quarter turns that they don't even care about.
They don't even care about it.
They'd spend hours and hours and hours and hours. Back in the day, ask Wheeler. Ask LeBron, right? People would spend hours doing the quarter turns.
It was a scored round. The funny thing is, I believe that even though they don't really care about the quarter turns anymore, I think that if you practice the quarter turns and your endurance on those quarter turns, it helps you it makes you a better poser because it gives you body control and awareness. I truly believe that.
Wheeler used to practice them forever. Wheeler had the craziest, wackiest quarter turns of all time.
Yeah, no, he knew he had good body awareness. When I watched those guys from the 90s posing, and there's some good guys today still. I'm not going to say that there's no good guys. But those guys from the 90s, they would get in that posing room in Gold's Venice there. They would be in there for hours. You couldn't even get in there, right? Cormier was
yeah.
And you know what? Chris made a good point. When Chris called me the other day to justify why Ramy didn't win, he did make a good point, though. He's like, look, I'm there. They're paying me to be there to work with these guys in the posing room. I would have met with Ramy at fucking 2 a.m, he said, if Ramy wanted to be there. And I would have...
Tell Chris his posing had 100% zero impact on his placing.
No, true, because he wasn't
That's
in shape.
the problem. That is the problem. I mean,
but
not the problem is...
the posing can influence you when you're in shape, though. That's... First, you got to be in shape, but you also need to have to display your physique as well. Ramy's not bad. He could be better. He's pretty good for a big guy. He's pretty good.
No, he's very good. I think he's got good presentation. He's got good awareness and.
All right, Chris. Here I found this study that I think you and I really need to hear because we talk about our fathers all the time and losing their mind. By the way, I was in New York this past weekend. My sister had like a memorial, dinner for my father. It was basically all my crazy Italian relatives getting drunk and together, and it was good. It was fun. I realized I hadn't really seen anyone in such a long time, especially since I moved, that I had to make my presence felt. And I read my poem. My sister made me read my poem, and I had everyone crying or whatever. But it was good. It was it was nice to see my family. I put up a picture. Everyone could see my crazy family.
That's the first picture I saw of the whole.
Yeah. My Uncle Vinny. My Uncle Vinny now is like the oldest, family member now. Now that my dad was the oldest, and it was amazing that he had outlived a lot of his brothers. And so my Uncle Vinny was there. And my Uncle Vinny's greatest line of all time is he only drinks when he smokes, and he only smokes when he drinks, and he's always smoking and drinking. Since I'm a kid, I've been hearing this. Line. It's great. It's a great line. Vinny, stop drinking. I only drink when I smoke. All right. Here's the study. Scientists, Chris, have found that being forgetful is actually a sign of unusual intelligence.
Oh, I know this for sure. I know this one already.
If you're one of these people who often forget something, which I am, you're probably worrying about this issue from time to time, which I am. Well, there's nothing to worry about, according to this study. Being forgetful is actually a sign that your brain functions better than you think. This is proven through a study that was published back in 2017. Being forgetful shouldn't be always connected to disease such as dementia or Alzheimer's. It's a sign to you that you're actually a pretty intelligent and smart person, they're saying. Research team at the University of Toronto decided to prove that the problem isn't so bad. They attempted to discover the connection between forgetfulness and brain health and function. It seems that the memories that we own are making us as intelligent as we are. Wait, it seems that but we have to forget some information to make... I always said this. They're saying that, in other words, you only have so much room in your brain to process new memories. So what your brain does, especially in very intelligent people, is it realizes that a lot of this, the information is frivolous. And rather than memorize it, it just discards it. And that's what I always said. I could look up a phone number and I could recite it to myself 15 times, and then I go to type it in, and I can't remember it. Because my brain knows that it's useless information that it doesn't need to remember. I know this. I intuitively, I'm like bells are going off as I'm reading this stuff.
No, I say I'm a great forgetter.
Scientists are saying there's good reasons to be forgetful. This issue can actually come in handy. As we're growing older, there are constantly new things that we need to acknowledge and learn, which means that everything that is getting older becomes less important and less significant. That's why we need to make space in our brain for new information. It can become harder to cope with some circumstances if you're constantly, remembering frivolous things. I always say this. Isn't that great?
Yeah, well, people remember painful things too, for too long of a period of time, which negatively affects them.
True. But I believe that. I don't remember anything frivolous. Matter of fact, and I've said this story, told the story before. When I took organic chemistry, and if you want to go to medical school, you have to take inorganic chemistry, which is like, that's the useful stuff, compounds and how things are like chemicals and how things are synthesized. And then organic chemistry is the science of living things, and it's basically all the chemical reactions. The funny thing is, when you first start the course, they basically tell you everything we're going to show you about how like molecules combine is all theory. We're not really sure it works this way. It's how electrons move and stuff like that. It just seems to work out this way. As soon as they said that, I blocked out everything. So I'll never remember any of this stuff. It's so complicated about moving electrons, go here and there, and you get that I blocked out the whole semester, and I'm a very good student. I like to learn, and I like to master what I'm doing. I couldn't remember it. I got a D. I think I got a D minus in one semester, but I got a D another semester. And those are the two worst marks I got. It ruined my grade point average because I almost failed. I think I got a C minus and a D. I think that's exactly the only D I've ever gotten in my entire career. And it was because I was good at the labs. That's what made me pass, because I could mix all the chemicals together. And matter of fact, we would have these labs, Chris, 4 hours a week, and you had to make these solutions. And I almost blew myself up in one of them. I mixed the chemicals too fast. I used to like to get out of there as quickly as possible, and I blew something up in my face, and something got into my eye, and so what they do is what you're doing is you're mixing these things and trying to figure out what the chemical you're making is. And at the end of the thing, you usually figure it out. So I blew this thing up in my face, and the teacher had to give me the name of the chemical that I was making so that I could bring it to the nurse's station, so they knew if it was caustic or it was going to,
You were making a bomb, and you didn't know it.
So I went to the thing. They flushed my eye. I gave her the slip of what the chemical was, and then she's like, "Okay, you can go back now." I said, "Oh, I can go back." I got back to class. I knew the answer to the solution. So I pretended I was going through some experiments, and then I went and I handed in my answer. I still finished before everyone else did, even with the eye thing. And he's like, brilliant. You got the answer right. The guy forgot he told me the answer. He forgot he gave me the chemical. Dummy. So anyway, yeah. So I believe this. I believe that your brain, if you're a smart person, will not remember frivolous stuff. I can tell you how, oxandrolone, is metabolized, because that seems to be relevant to bodybuilding. But I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you anything. I couldn't tell you about, what my niece's what my nephew's name was. I can't remember it.
Well, when I told Jay's friend this when I was in Tampa with Sergio and Henry Pierano.
Yeah.
At my hotel, there was like a little keypad to get into the parking lot, and the combo was like 15386, something like that,
Right.
And I'd go through it a million times. Every single time I'd have to look at the piece of paper.
Yeah.
I would never be able to remember
it's
something like that.
something you're never going to use again. That's why.
That's right. I know I'd have the one down. I had that nailed. But the other 4 digits, 5 digits.
I sometimes ask, I'll be like, Chris is like, wait, I'm texting you a picture of my client. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's great. What's his name? He's like, I'm not sure. You're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. He's responding really well to the diet. You're like, but I don't know what his name is.
A lot of people times I don't know their last name, especially if I can't pronounce it or something.
Right,
I can't.
Right. No, you have a lot of Middle Eastern guys.
If it's
here,
not
too.
Smith, I'm like, I don't know. Someone will say, how old is he? I don't know. He's married? I don't know.
I'm like, Chris, you just sent me this great picture of this guy. What the hell is his name? He's like, I'm not sure. I think it's Jim. But what's his last name? I want to look him up. I don't know. I don't know. I was going to talk. You know what? We're actually going over time already. We're too. But people like when the show goes long anyway because everyone's got cardio now. But there's a bunch of lunatics now on YouTube that have their own channels, Chris. That they do these eating challenges where they not in the old days when I used to do the eating challenges where how fast can you eat this. Now these guys eat exorbitant amounts of food. Like they'll go and this one guy is what the hell is his name? His YouTube channel is hold on. Eric the Electric. That's what he's called. He's like this is a decent looking guy, blonde hair, whatever. He's a lunatic. Once a month he does these challenges. I was watching this video. The birthday carb collection challenge. He ate 17,000 calories, Chris, in one sitting. They're very well 17,000. Krispy Kremes, Cinnabon,
I
whole
thought the
box
record
of
was
cereal.
20,000, but go ahead.
A whole box of cereal. If Kai Greene ever has to retire, doesn't want to compete in bodybuilding anymore, he should do one of these things. It's so disgusting, and it's almost unbelievable what he's doing, but you can't stop watching it. The guy's got like 500,000 subscribers.
What's he using Periactum or something? Dandushane Periactum.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I didn't watch.
Is he fat?
No, he's skinny. He's like a skinny guy.
Thermic effect, the food.
Well, people ask me. I said, well, you know what? It's probably he only does it once a month, so it's like intermittent fasting. The guy's like probably starving himself the rest of the month. I can't even. I don't even know how he gets all the food down. It's unbelievable what he's eating. The amount of food. I'm watching him. I'm like, holy mackerel, this is crazy. I can only imagine what his pancreas is doing. Oh my God, the amount of insulin it's got to crank out to fucking handle that.
You mentioned this is another offshoot from the weekend. You mentioned Kai.
Yeah.
People say, "Whoa, Kai! What if Kai was there?" Kai.
Well, I think did we talk about that last week? I think we talked.
No, I don't think we did. I don't think we did talk about Kai.
I did a little rant on my own.
You can't even remember.
I can't remember. I talked about with Shawn Ray as well. I think that my take on it was on my rant was that I don't think that Kai had as much of a problem with the organizers of the Olympia as he that was his reasoning. I didn't get along with these guys, that they disrespect me. I think he had a problem with Phil Heath. I think Phil Heath really got into his head.
I told you that.
Yeah, I know you and I agree on this, and I think that the reason he didn't do the Olympia, the reason he didn't do the Olympia was because of Phil Heath. Now that Phil's gone,
I've been saying that.
Well, because you know what, the thing with AMI is just a business thing. Business can always be fixed because it's all about money.
Business is fixed with money.
Yes, with money, exactly.
The language of business is money. You can hate the person sitting across the table from you, but if you come to an agreement and money's good, people, oh, geez, what great job.
If I were Kai, I would just hire Jay. I'd say, Jay, you want to make a commission? Negotiate this Olympia entering the Olympia next year. Jay would go to the table. Jay would get
a story.
Jay would get Kai double what he thought he was going to get. That's what he really needs. I don't know. How would Kai have done it? I don't know if Kai would have beaten Roden. You and I talked about this before because Kai almost didn't beat Cedric. He didn't really beat Cedric at the Arnold. Cedric lost to Kai because of a posing round that was scored. So, I mean, Cedric's never even come close to beating Roden. So I don't know. I don't know if Kai could beat Roden at this point because it's a structure thing. Kai would do better against a big Ramy on stage, I think, or Jay, or a big freaky guy than a Roden, because Roden just exploits all of Kai's flaws, which is structure at this point, and his waistline. So I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with you. I mean, that's a big part of why Cedric beat him when Cedric looked really good at that Arnold. Granted, he was in really good condition, but he wasn't in like
stellar
freaky, crazy condition.
Right.
But when he hit the poses, when we did the wrap up, Dave, I remember this sentence I said. It had to do with exposing weaknesses. And I think it was like this show exposes the myth of Kai Greene. Of course, I was being hard on Kai because I wanted Cedric to win. But,
Yeah.
When he hit the front double, he didn't look as good as Cedric. When he hit the front lat spread, he didn't look on all the poses because of his structure. And he was off in prejudging, too.
Look, Kai Greene.
And that's not me. You sat down with Weinberger the Monday after the show, pose for pose, and he said the same thing. Cedric was beating him on every shot.
Yeah. Here's the problem. Kai Greene is in his 40s now. He's not the Kai Greene he was when he was in his 30s. And he's still really good. I mean, really good. He's got some crazy body parts and some terrific separation, and he's one of the best, posers out there. So he's still great. It's like taking the greatest baseball player of all time and putting him in his 40s. Yeah, he's still a great baseball player, but he's not the player he was when he was in his 20s and his 30s. So, granted, Rodin's probably the same age as Kai, but for some reason, Shawn's got some crazy genetics where his waist is still like the tiniest waist I've ever seen, and he just didn't get too big. I think, and that's Kai did the Ronnie Coleman thing, and Kai's got a very short torso, whereas Rodin's got the long torso. The long torso guys tend to last a little longer because their structures tend to hold up better under time. But the bottom line is that, I think that Kai would be great for the sport. It would be terrifically entertaining to see Kai come back. I think that it would be the most exciting Olympia probably in the last 5 years.
Without a doubt.
Who cares if he wins or not? Just I want to see him on that stage.
Yeah.
And, obviously, I don't know what Kai's business acumen is lately. I don't know if he's making a lot of money or not, or if he's just enjoying life. But it would do well for his pocketbook, Not even just the prize money. I think the opportunities that would present themselves, because then he would reignite people's interest in him. I'm sure every international, federation out there will want to bring him in to do a guest posing and to do a seminar. So, it might not be a bad idea. I mean, how many more shows do you think he's got left in his bag of tricks there?
How old is he?
I thought he was the same age as Jay.
43. Was 43?
Yeah, maybe him and Rodin are the same age too. They're all around. He's got to be closing in on 45. He was 40, I think, in his last.
Yeah, you're right.
Olympia or something.
Last Olympia.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
So he's got to be like 44 or something like that.
That was what? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So yeah, he's 44.
And that's still, it's still pretty young. I think he's got one of these physiques that, he started late. He's been training his whole life, but he was a natural athlete for many years. And that gives you longevity, when you don't use drugs from 13 years old. Those guys last a little longer, the guys who stay natural longer. So I think it's definitely the most exciting scenario that I could think of for 2019. If Phil doesn't do the show, which I think he definitely will, let's say Phil doesn't do it, Flex Lewis holds off another year because he wants to wait till 2020, and Kai doesn't do it. I mean, really, it's going to be Bonac versus Rodin on stage, unless Ramy, comes in phenomenal, and that's a possibility, obviously. Ramy's the wild card in the lineup, You're always waiting for this guy to show up and deliver the goods. Maybe now that he's finally making that, that change, and he's not afraid to insult Beta or whatever the case may be, we might see the best Ramy next year. I hope he works at you, and hope you're the guy to make that happen. I think the fans would love it, but there's always that on the horizon. That's the advantage of having a big Ramy in that lineup. You always don't know, will he show up this year? Because if he does, it's going to change the scope of bodybuilding. And on that note, we're out of time until next week. Remember, with Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth hurts.
Good night, everyone.